Good Monday morning. Welcome back to Monday Morning Encouragement. How you doing? Hanging in there? The Cummins clan sure is. Amid the COVID-19, the tornadoes that hit us a little while back, and now, if you haven't heard, wildfires. There's a 2,000-acre wildfire about 2.5 miles from our house. But a whole lot of prayer went into that. The whole church and a lot of family members prayed, and one day the wind shifted and blew it away from us. Thank the Lord. So, there's been like 30 houses that were damaged. So I want to pray for those families. But as far as us, we are safe, unharmed. Thanking the Lord. But I just wanted to share with you kind of what the Lord encouraged me with. Seems like we've been going through a lot of unusual things going on, and the Lord really just kind of took me through the story of Joseph. Maybe you've heard it before. I encourage you to hang out. I'm going to kind of go through a Cliff Notes version of it for those who have never heard it before. And I want to show you what the Lord showed me. So Joseph, if you don't know, is the son of Jacob or Israel. His name's Israel because he had 12 sons. And those 12 sons became the 12 separate tribes of Israel. So, Joseph is Jacob's son. Not only is he Jacob's son, in verse 3 of chapter 37, it says, Israel is Jacob. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the child of his old age. So, this already set a bad precedent for his other 11 brothers to kind of not like him because he was his dad's favorite. So, one night, Joseph had a dream. God gave him a premonition, if you would, of what's going to happen in the future, and it was of his brothers, his whole family bowing down to him, essentially. And he told the dream to everybody, and his brothers were like, yeah, you're the youngest brother, we're not bowing down to you. So it kind of made them upset, and they basically hated him from there on out. Well, one day all the brothers were out taking care of the livestock, and Joseph was at home, and Jacob, his dad, was like, hey, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping your brothers? He's like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll go help my brothers. So he's walking down the road, and his brothers see it coming far off. He's like, man, we ought to kill this guy, right? So they start planning to kill his brother, their brother. So by the time he gets there, they kind of talk themselves out of it. Reuben's like, no, we can't kill him. He's our brother. We can't kill him, but maybe we can rough him up. So they probably beat him up, and they did throw him in a pit, okay? Now they're trying to decide what to do with him now that he's all beat up and in a pit, because they're probably going to get in trouble for beating up his little brother. Well, lo and behold, a gang of slavery-owning dudes are walking by going to Egypt, and they're like, hey, let's sell our brother, get some coin, and solve our problem. So they sell their brother to the slave owners in Egypt. They take his coat of many colors that his dad made him. They kill a baby goat, put some blood on it, and tell his dad that he was devoured by a wild beast. And so, wash their hands of that. Well, the story picks up in chapter 39 with Joseph on his way to Egypt to be sold to a man named Potiphar. And this man was a master in Egypt. He owned a lot of things, had a lot of riches, and Joseph was sold to him. Now, in chapter 39, verse 2, it says, this is the important part. If you've heard the story and you tuned out, tune back in, because I want you to hear this, all right? Chapter 39, verse 2 says, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian, which his name is Potiphar. And his master Potiphar saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Potiphar, the master of Egypt, saw this slave he just bought. He saw there was something special about him. What was it? He saw that the Lord was with Joseph. Even though Joseph was just beat up by his brothers, thrown in the pit, sold in slavery, and bought by this dude, the Lord was with him. All right? It's very important. Note that, and we'll come back to it. So he continues to work. He does all these great things. He's a really good worker. So Potiphar decides to make him like the governor over his household. And everything's going great until Potiphar's wife enters the equation. She starts taking a kind eye to Mr. Joseph. And through a few subtle meetings, she kind of wants to, get with him. And he's like, no, I can't do that. I can't sin against my God, my master and my God. I can't do that. So one day he finds himself alone with her. All the slaves are out in the field. The master's gone on a business trip. It's just him and her. Well, guess what she does? She tries to seduce him and pull him into bed. Well, he's like, oh, no, I ain't doing that, So he runs away. But in running away, he dropped one of his pieces of clothing. So she uses that to say that he tried to force himself upon her. Well, ends up that the master believes his wife. And so he gets pretty angry and throws Joseph into prison. Chapter 39. Verse 20 says, and Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. Verse 21, but the Lord was with Joseph, and he showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. Now, if you know the story of Joseph, you know the rest of it, right? He tells the dreams of a couple people in prison. One of them gets out, goes back to Pharaoh, forgets about him for 2 years, but then tells Pharaoh, after Pharaoh had some terrifying dreams about a great plenty and a great famine, about this dude named Joseph, telling him his dream, pulls him out of prison, gets his dream told. He's like, wow, this guy's amazing. God's upon him. In fact, he says in Chapter 41, verse 38, Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one, such as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? So he's very impressed with Joseph, makes Joseph the governor over the whole land of Egypt. The great years of plenty come. I think it was 7 years of plenty, and then 7 years of famine hit, and everywhere around is famished, including his brothers and his father. Well, guess what? They need food. They come to Egypt. He notices his brothers. He does this whole little game with them, They find out that that's my brother. He forgives them, which is another important lesson that we're not really getting into today. But the thing I want you to look at is what was going on with Joseph during this whole great story, right? His brothers beat him up, threw him in a pit, and plotted to kill him. They didn't kill him, sold him into slavery, was sold to a master, and then was thrown into prison. In those instances, the Bible points out twice, the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord showed mercy upon Joseph. The Lord made Joseph a prosperous man. So I want to encourage you today that no matter where you find yourself, maybe you feel like you've been thrown into a pit and you can't quite crawl out of it. Maybe you feel beat up at work. You feel beat down, tired, exhausted. Maybe you're on the front line fighting this COVID-19 and you are just plumb exhausted. Thank you, by the way, for your sacrifice. Maybe you're actually in a prison and you're looking for some encouragement. I don't know. The Lord is with you. Look, if you know Jesus Christ as your Savior, God is with you. He's in you every day. The question is what are you going to do with that? You see, Joseph, he lived righteously. No matter what situation, whether he was a slave, whether he was a prisoner, or whether he was the governor of Egypt, he lived in such a way that people saw God in his life. And I want to encourage you to do that today. Encourage me to do that today. We've had a lot going on around the Cummings clan. Wildfires, tornadoes, sicknesses. And God has protected us. God has been with us. And I pray that people have seen God in us. But I want to encourage you. Remember that God is with you. Remember the God you serve. And go out this week and live in a way that shows that God is with you. Live righteously, live humbly, meek and low. Think of the Beatitudes of Jesus on the Mount of Olives. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Well, guys, I hope that's some encouragement for a Monday morning, and I hope it gets you through the rest of the week. As always, have a blessed day.